Hello and welcome back to Good Morning KU Sports. I'm Gabe Daniel.
And I'm Savannah Reeves.
Now, Savannah, KU is 2-0 on the year. Is it too soon to say football school? It's a really exciting time to be a Jayhawk right now.
Yes, it really is exciting, but I don't want to speak too soon about KU football getting up there.
And Jalen Daniels had himself another impressive night against the Mountaineers. We could sit here and talk all morning about it. Instead, we're going to go ahead and send it over to Lauren with the recap. And that's enough talk about the throws from Jalen Daniels. Instead, I'm Gabe Daniel, and check out this throw over to Barry with the Chiefs-Chargers recap.
The Chiefs and Chargers played last night. A very close game as the score ended with the Chiefs out on top 27-24. Mahomes, who is now 22-3 versus AFC West opponents, threw 2 touchdowns and 235 yards. On the other end was Justin Herbert, who threw 3 touchdowns and 335 yards and a crucial interception that turned the game's momentum around. Herbert had to battle it with the rib injury near the end. He kept getting hit in the same spot after the first time. The pressure was coming. Even though the Chargers lost, Herbert battled through adversity, but it wasn't enough to secure the win. Both of these teams fought hard. Each team made some great plays, and the Chiefs were able to get the job done. I enjoyed the game, and I feel Mahomes versus Herbert will be the battle for the next decade to come.
National champions deserve a clean campus. Don't wait for other Jayhawks to pick up your mess. Keep the University of Kansas clean.
What is up? My name is Liam, and I'm here to break down a wild week 1 of the NFL season. I want to start with a wild one. Steelers on the road taking on the Bengals. We saw Joe Burrow turn the ball over 5 times, as well as getting sacked 7 times. We also saw multiple missed kicks in this overtime thriller. Steelers ultimately get the win 23-20 in overtime, but have some bad news surrounding star pass rusher TJ Watt, as it looks like he can miss some significant time with the torn pec. Next, we saw Joe Flacco take on his former team, the Ravens, in New York. Quarterback Lamar Jackson has a monster game versus the Jets, throwing for 3 touchdowns just days after declining a $250 million contract extension with the Ravens. Next, we saw the Titans suffer a heartbreaking loss to the Giants at home. Running back Saquon Barkley looks to be his old self after rushing for 164 yards and 1 touchdown. Giants scored a late touchdown to make the score 19-20, but opted for a gutsy call of going for 2 points. Saquon Barkley rushed it in to give the Giants a 1 point, 21-20 lead late in the fourth. Titans then drive down to field goal range, but kicker Randy Bullock missed a game-winning kick wide left. Giants win 21-20 and get their first opening week 1 win in 6 years. That missed kick was not the only one we saw on Sunday. We saw much more. There was a total of 11 missed kicks on Sunday. Kickers were not looking good on Sunday. Next, the Chiefs did not miss a beat after trading star wide receiver Tyreek Hill to the Dolphins. Quarterback Patrick Mahomes throws 5 touchdowns in a win against Cardinals 44-21. Chiefs looking like serious threats in the AFC. Next we moved to multiple important division games. Packers at Vikings, Raiders at Chargers, Saints at Falcons, and Colts at Texans. We saw the Vikings handle division rival Packers after a monster performance from star wide receiver Justin Jefferson. 23-7 was the final score, as Aaron Rodgers seems to be missing his star receiver Devontae Adams. We saw Adams' team, the Raiders, lose a close one to the Chargers. Although they lost, Adams had a great game with 141 receiving yards and 1 touchdown. We also saw a great performance from star quarterback Justin Herbert as they beat the Raiders 24-19. We then saw the Colts and Texans tie at 20 after a missed field goal in overtime. Saints and Falcons played a close one with the Saints edged out a 1-point, 27-26 win in Atlanta. We also had a great storyline down at the Browns at Panthers game. We saw quarterback Baker Mayfield host his old team, the Browns. Mayfield couldn't get the revenge he wanted as the Panthers fall just short 26-24 to the Browns. Buccaneers handled the Cowboys 19-3 on Sunday Night Football in the first game of legendary quarterback Tom Brady's 23rd season. The Cowboys did not only lose the game, but it looks like their quarterback Dak Prescott will miss some significant time after needing surgery on his hand. Bears and 49ers had some fun in the rain. Bears came out with a 19-10 win. We also saw the Eagles, Dolphins, Commanders, and Bills pick up very important Week 1 wins. To close out Week 1 on Monday Night Football, we saw quarterback Russell Wilson face his former team, the Seahawks. The Broncos fell just short in Seattle after losing a heartbreaker 17-16 after missing a 64-yard field goal for the win. Overall, it was a very action-packed Week 1, and we are very much looking forward to Week 2 and the rest of the season. I'm going to kick it to Barry for a fantasy football preview.
Thank you, Liam. To kick this week off, I will give you guys a recap of our fantasy standouts for Week 1. I'll go off into the QB1, best RB1 and RB2, then move on to the wide receiver 1, and then the best tight end 1, the best defense, and yeah. Then after that, I will move on to our start 'em, sit 'em part of our fantasy, moving on ahead to Week 2 of whom to start and who to sit. So first, our best QB performance of Week 1, we're going to start out with Patrick Mahomes, who put up 34 fantasy points, had an outstanding outing in Glendale, racked up 5 touchdowns, 360 yards, and no interceptions. With the absence of former Raiders CB, Trayvon Mullen, and 3-time Defensive Player of the Year J.J. Watt, Mahomes had a field day with that Arizona defense. According to Fantasy News, they had Mahomes finishing QB3 before Week 1 started, but he finished QB1. Moving on to our running back performance winners, if you started Saquon, DeAndre Swift, or Jonathan Taylor, then you should feel really happy about yourself. Saquon is back to his Penn State form, looking really dangerous on that run game with the better O-line. He finished the game with 18 carries for 164 yards and a touchdown with a clutch 2-point conversion. The only thing to worry about is his health, but we have to be very optimistic about that moving forward. Next, we have our top performance at wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2. Wide receiver 1, Justin Jefferson and Devontae Adams. Jefferson finished with 30 fantasy points. He had 9 receptions for 184 yards and 2 touchdowns. What's impressive is he did that against a projected top 5 defense leading into the season. He's under the same offense Cooper Kupp was last year, and I feel on a personal level that Jefferson thrives even more and be the first wide receiver ever to exceed 2,000 yards in a season. This season looks promising for that Vikings as a whole. Now, our tight end 1 for this week is Travis Kelce, who finished with 18 fantasy points. He went for 8 receptions for 121 yards and this sweet touchdown grab. I feel like with the absence of Tyreek Hill, he will get more targets and will go for the record again, the tight end record. With the amount of weapons the Chiefs gained this offseason, it will just open everything up for Kelce to just be open more. With my heart heavy on Kyle Pitts to be tight end 1 by the end of the season, based on his performance on Sunday, I just feel like the crown will go to Kelce again. Wrapping up our fantasy recap with the best defense for Week 1 is the Pittsburgh Steelers defense. They secured the win and absolutely got the best of Joe Burrow. They finished with 5 turnovers and a whopping 7 sacks. It made Joe Burrow finish this week with 42.7 QBR, according to ESPN. Unfortunately for them, they have lost their heart and soul of this defense. TJ Watt with a torn pec, who is probably out for the next 6 weeks. Moving on to our start 'em, sit 'em breakouts, pick starting with QB. Start, and I repeat, start, Matt Ryan for this week. He racked up only 16 fantasy points and 1 touchdown. According to Fantasy Pros, he did have 352 yards and the receivers were failing. him against Houston. This week, I have projected to have 20 points with 3 touchdowns and around 395 passing yards, and him getting sacked at least 2 times because he's behind one of the best O-lines in football. Someone who you should sit for this week is Buccaneers QB Tom Brady. He is on 4 against the Saints as a Buccaneer, according to StatMuse. He really didn't look promising against the Cowboys. The Saints defense got even better with the additions of Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus May, and Bradley Roby, who looked nice in their first outing. I just feel it's going to be tough for Brady now that he is playing with an injured Godwin, who is his security blanket. The Saints are a top 5 defense too. Brady, who only had 212 passing yards, 1 touchdown and a pick, got sacked twice against the Cowboys. This is going to be a tough week for Brady, and I have him finishing with only 9 fantasy points. Starting from running backs this week. Start Dameon Pierce and start Cam Akers this week. Dameon Pierce only sought out 4 fantasy points. He is only a rookie, and his first game won't define him. Look for the Texans to run more this game because Denver is dominant in pass defense, but the weakest part of their defense is defending the run, which they were the bottom teams of last season. I project Pierce to find the end zone 1 time, will be utilized in the passing game, and seeing some flares of him in the preseason. I project him with 16 fantasy points this week. Running backs I'm sitting this week are Najee Harris and Aaron Jones. Najee Harris only had 23 yards for 10 carries and wasn't involved in the passing game that much. He's also battling a foot injury. According to Adam Schefter, his foot injury did come back negative, and he should be ready to play versus the Pats. The Patriots only allowed 65 rushing yards last week, which was the 4th lowest. They played the Dolphins, whose leading rusher was Chase Edmonds, had 12 carries for 25 yards and was shut down. So it's a lot to look forward this week. I feel like Tom will limit Harris's carries because of that injury. I just feel as a whole, the Patriots' run defense is better than the Bengals. Furthermore, I have Najee projecting to score 8 fantasy points. Moving on to wide receivers this week. You should start Michael Pittman and Courtland Sutton. Courtland Sutton is a big risky because he has future star corner Derek Stingley hovering him. But based on last week, Houston's defense ran zone a lot last week. Fantasy Pros also has the Texans dead last in fantasy defenses too. So will Court have that Pittman role that Pittman had last week? It's a lot to look out for. Plus, I have faith in Russ. He'll have a bounce-back game. And at the beginning of the season, since the loss of Tim Patrick, he's leaning on Court to be a security blanket. On the other hand, for Pittman, who had 121 receiving yards last week, the Texans also play the Jaguars this week. So Pittman will thrive this week too. The Jaguars let Carson Wentz go off for 4 touchdowns and 313 yards. Wentz is now a top 5 in passing yards and TDs to start this season off. The Jaguars defense had a flare from rookie Trayvon Walker, but that's about it. Pittman gained 18 fantasy points last week, but I feel like I projected him to have 23 this week because it seems to me this is Matt Ryan's favorite target. A wide receiver that I'm sitting this week is Browns wide receiver 1, Amari Cooper. The Browns are a team that pass heavy to their running backs and tight ends instead of their wide receivers. Cooper, who only had 3 receptions for 17 yards, only got targeted 6 times. Jacoby Brissett is a good QB, but he's not the QB that will get your favorite receiver involved. Carolina finished 28th in fantasy points last week, Sunday with only 1. So with that being said, sit Cooper because he is also going against rookie corner Sauce Gardner, who hasn't allowed a single completion last Sunday when running man. I'm pretty sure New York will put him to the test this Sunday, facing one of the best route runners in the leagues. With that being said, I like Cooper as a player, but you're going to have to sit Cooper this week. Our second to last position, which is tight end, the tight end to start this week is Darren Waller. He is a tight end that can find the soft spots in zones, excellent route runner, and is going to face a team that allowed 44 points last week. Derek Carr is hungry right now. I know that defense has watched him and are solely focused on stopping Adams, so I feel Waller will pop off this game. Waller did, in fact, have 79 yards against the outstanding Chargers defense. Although he only dropped 8 fantasy points, I feel like after week 2, he will finish tight end 3. He will have a great season. Now, a tight end to sit for this week is Cowboys tight end Dalton Schultz. The loss of Dak Prescott until late October, early November will hurt Schultz's fantasy value. He was supposed to finish tight end 6 according to Fantasy Pros this season. A lot of guys were banking on him, but now Dalton will get fewer targets, and it won't be a good look for him until Dak comes back. Finally, if you're in a 32-man, a 24-man, a 20-man, or an 18-man league, and you have 2 defenses, a defense you should start this week is the Rams. It was an off week for them last week, and since they're going against a weak O-line, they will get the sacks, the pass deflections, and probably some picks. Raheem Morris will prevail. He'll have a trick up his sleeve with the defense. To see him in the second year, he can't adjust. Especially playing against a team who lost Calvin Ridley and Russell Gage during the offseason, their pass game isn't looking too promising, especially with the weak run struggles of Kyle Pitts. A defense to sit this week is the Buccaneers. I just feel like Winston is going to air it out. A very dominant receiving core is coming in. Winston is going to be all over their corners. Landry went off on the Falcons. Thomas had 2 touchdowns, and Olave is going to be the best offensive rookie this year. I can't wait for this game, and the firepower from the backfield too is going to dominate too. The Buccaneers better watch out. A sleeper this week out of all positions is Vikings tight end Irv Smith in the big Monday night game. The Eagles DBs will focus on Jay Jettis a lot and Thielen, so watch out for Irv to get more targets this week and finish top 10 in tight ends. A bust this whole fantasy season will be James Conner. He was a touchdown machine last year, but also I don't see it happening again. Most of the goal line carries will go to Kyler Murray. Maybe James Conner will get some goal line touches. That Cardinals O-line isn't looking too promising, but we just have to see what happens. We're going to take a quick break and be right back with some KU sports coverage.
You may not hear it at first, but it's there. Our chant, rising. On this summit, callings converge, voices unify into a chorus that sounds out for good, for greatness. Can you hear it?
This weekend, a few of our Jayhawk sports will be back in action. Everyone has their eyes on the 2-0 football team. They will head to Houston to play a future Big 12 opponent in the Cougars. Houston will try to bounce back after a tough loss to Texas Tech last Saturday as the Jayhawks seek their first 3-0 start to the season since 2009. The Hawks are coming into the game as the highest scoring offense in the country with 55.5 points per game. Houston's defense has had its fair share of struggles on the defensive side of the ball. If the Cougar defense can't find a solution for sophomore quarterback Jalen Daniels, expect this game to be a high-scoring affair. The game kicks off this Saturday at 3.
Cross country and volleyball also compete this weekend. The cross country team will be racing at 2021 Woody Greeno J. Dickerson Invitation in Nebraska this weekend. The volleyball team is off to a hot 8-1 start as they face the University of Central Florida tonight. The match is at home and is set to start at 6:30 p.m. You can also watch the match on ESPN NU. Lastly, the women's soccer team will travel to take on the University of South Florida. The ladies will attempt to add their 2-game winning streak. As always, good luck to all Jayhawks competing this weekend. Bring home those dubs. The Kansas women's volleyball team has come into the 2020 season ready to play. As of lately, the Kansas women's volleyball team has been on a hot streak with an overall record of 8-1. With wins over Drake and Utah, the Jayhawks are currently listed as 23rd on the AP polls with only 1 loss. The team this year has shown great progress together.
I just think they show up every day and go to work. I don't have to worry about, they check their ego at the door. Everybody's ready to go to work. With 19 on the roster, that can be hard to manage, but it seems to be that we got a good competitive chemistry, and they're going to represent us well on the floor, and I know they're going to represent us well off the floor too.
The energy at home games for the Jayhawk has always seemed to excite the team.
I think they're excited. We had some fun on the road. You know, the Utah trip was great. We got to experience some great things at West Point, but they really relish playing at home, and we've got a great atmosphere here. There's a ton of enthusiasm in our arena. The band provides an interesting element. So we're excited about the homestand we have coming up.
Even with some hard competition within conference play, the Jayhawks are confident in their hard work paying off during
Big 12 championship's always a goal of ours. We happen to have the top team in the country in our league with us this year with Texas. But if we can compete favorably with the teams in our conference, obviously a postseason bid with the NCAA tournament always is a great reward. And last year we went on a little run in the NCAA tournament. So we want to be playing our best volleyball as we move through October and November and see where that takes us. Let's get healthy this weekend, let's build some momentum, and then we'll get ready for Big 12 play.
The regular Big 12 Conference games are scheduled to start on September 21st at home, and the Jayhawks will take on the number 1 ranked team, Texas. Then the ladies are headed to the Little Apple to take on the Wildcats.
Last night's game started off the Jayhawk Classic in Hoare Stadium. The girls will be back in action there tonight at 6:30 p.m. to take on UCF.
Sunday evening, September 11th, Kansas Athletics hosted Rock Chalk Choice Awards at the Lyde Center. This is a ceremony where student athletes have the opportunity to dress to impress, walk the red carpet, and be recognized for their hard work throughout the previous year. Members of the KU softball team dressed to impress.
Brian Haney, the voice of the Jayhawks, announced the event, introducing student athletes that presented the awards to the winners.
In addition to the award ceremony, KU's athletic director Travis Goff gave a special speech about how proud he was of the past 2021-2022 season and that he is eager for the 2022-2023 upcoming seasons.
There were a total of 9 awards given, including Rock Chalk Moment of the Year, which was voted for during the ceremony. There was a total of 4 nominations for this award, each having their own playback video. These specific moments included KU women's track and field, Sasha McMillan finishing her historic career, KU football's historic win over Texas in overtime, and KU volleyball's trip to the Sweet 16 with wins over 2 nationally ranked teams, and of course the national championship that KU men's basketball brought back to Lawrence.
After a digital voting took place, KU men's basketball was awarded Rock Chalk Moment of the Year, and Jalen Wilson spoke on behalf of the team. Following Wilson's speech, Bill Self then addressed the crowd that it was not easy and they could not have done it without the support of Lawrence.
Amongst the 9 awards, there were 2 athletes that were recognized as Male and Female Athlete of the Year, Sasha McMillan with track and field and Ochai Abaji with men's basketball.
Other awards included the Jayhawker Award, Avery Smith Soccer Team GPA Award, Women's Golf, the Dell Schenkel Teaching Award, Dr. Daniel Hemmingson, the Best Jayhawk in Supporting Role, Matt Copeland, Football, the Crimson Climb Award, Angelina Price, Softball, the True Blue Award, Errol Botstick, Football.
It was a great night for the Jayhawks all around and a special moment to see each athlete dressed their best, as we all are used to seeing them in uniform.
Walking alone in a college town can be dangerous, no matter the time of day. Lawrence might seem like a small town, but there is still tons of crime that happens. You never know where and or when people are planning to attack, so it is better to be safe than sorry. Being by yourself is never the answer. That's why people should always walk within a buddy system. Having at least 3 people to walk with can help with getting home safer. Going out in a bigger group is definitely the way to go, so everyone can be assured they are safe. If walking home isn't an option, calling KU Safe Ride is the next best option, or ordering an Uber with your friends. Stay safe and always keep a buddy with you.
Welcome back to Good Morning KU Sports. I'm Erin Borchers here with a brief weather update. So I am covering today men's and women's cross country that's headed to Lincoln, Nebraska, women's soccer that's headed to Tampa, Florida, and of course our KU football team is heading to Houston, Texas. So let's go ahead and take a look right outside Lawrence here. We're sitting at about 72 degrees this morning and it's partly cloudy. It's also warming up. It's also going to get cloudier as the day goes on. The wind is pretty strong out of the south, about 13 miles per hour. And then let's go ahead and take a look at some of the sports that we have this weekend. In Nebraska, when the race starts on Saturday morning for the cross-country team, it's going to be about 70 degrees for them. It's going to be overcast with lots of clouds and a good 50% chance of rain. Hopefully they don't get rained on while they're running. We can only cross our fingers for that. And for soccer, who is going to play on Sunday this weekend in Tampa, Florida, they're also looking at overcast skies and at 84 degrees at noon when their game starts. And they have a higher chance of rain with about 60% chance during that time period. For our football team that's going to be down in Houston at 3 p.m. for their kickoff conditions on Saturday, they're looking at mostly cloudy, still a chance of rain. Let's hope it doesn't rain on them. And we're looking at about 83 degrees, which is around that high for Saturday for them. The wind's also going to be pretty strong out of the southeast that day. So let's go ahead and look at some of our travel conditions. These are temperatures for today at 1 p.m. If you are traveling for any of these games, specifically from Lawrence down to Houston, we're actually having pretty uniform temperatures in that area. But of course, if you go up to Lincoln, Nebraska, it's going to be cooler. And if I step aside here, you can see Tampa, Florida is also just slightly warmer than where we are sitting here in Lawrence and where Houston is currently. So traveling, not too bad with the range of temperatures, but just something to be a little bit aware of. Houston, of course, is going to be more humid, along with Tampa, Florida, if you're heading down there. So be prepared for that. And then if you get to Houston and on game day, Saturday, if you want a little bit of a look at what the afternoon's going to look like, the high is going to be around 85 degrees, and that's going to be reached right after that kickoff time of 3 p.m. Like I said, it's going to be about 83 when kickoff happens. Winds are going to stay pretty strong out of the southeast, and then it'll cool down a little bit overnight, not overnight, but into the evening and overnight, of course. And if you are going to watch the game up here in Lawrence, then here is a brief little game day hourly forecast for you as well. We are actually going to have some pretty strong winds up in Lawrence during the afternoon. We're going to see winds about 20 miles per hour, and we are going to be sitting in the mid-80s. Not too many clouds as what I can see, but we are going to see some cloud buildup this weekend up in Lawrence, and there are still some hovering chances for rain. For this little weekend planner, I took 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. time, so of course expect more clouds during the day during these hours, and then we do have some chances of rain, but Saturday is looking not too bad, not much hotter than what we have been seeing, and same with Sunday as well. Sunday we're actually going to hit a low of about 71, and it's not going to get much cooler than that. So that is all I have for your Good Morning KU Sports update, and after this break we will be back with more sports headed your way.
From adversity, we rose. We made history and became pioneers, voyagers, champions, Jayhawks. And when our chant rises, haunting and hallowed, Jayhawks are telling the world what's near. Victory.
After a chaotic 24 hours before the event that included a backstage brawl and the entire main event getting reorganized due to multiple failed weight cuts, UFC 279 went underway last week, in which we saw fighters such as Khamzat Chimaev get a quick first-round submission victory over Big Mouth Kevin Holland after a controversial fake glove touch that gave Chimaev the upper hand. The main event consisted of former interim lightweight champion Tony Ferguson against Stockton's own Nate Diaz. Diaz controlled most of the fight and ended it with a guillotine choke at 2 minutes and 52 seconds in the fourth round. This long-awaited matchup was the last fight on Diaz's contract, and it is rumored that Diaz will be starting his professional boxing career. Other than the fight nights, the next UFC event will take place on October 22nd in Abu Dhabi for the lightweight title fight between Charles do Bronx Oliveira and the Dagestani native Islam Makhachev. This card includes a bantamweight title fight between Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw, as well as a fight between former champion Petr Yan and fan favorite Sugar Sean O'Malley.
The MLB announced last week that the 3 major rule changes are coming to the league next season. These include a pitch clock, limits on defensive shifting, and larger bases. In a game, the pitch clock will act like the play clock in football or the shot clock in basketball. Its purpose is to limit the amount of time between pitches and speed up the pace of the game. There are various time limits for the different scenarios of a game. There will be a 30-second timer between batters, and pitchers will have 15 seconds between pitches when the bases are empty and 20 seconds when there are runners on the base. Other limitations, such as a set number of pickoff attempts, are also included in this new rule. If a pitcher violates the rules of the clock, an automatic ball is recorded for the batter. If the batter is in violation, they are penalized with an automatic strike. The minor leagues have tested the clock this season. With the variation of this new rule in place, it has shown to reduce the average game time about 26 minutes.
The second new rule will limit defensive shifts. The rule states that the defensive team must have at least 4 players in the infield with at least 2 on either side of second base. Basically, the infielders have to stay in the general area of their position and can't just overtly adjust to their opponents. And finally, the bases will be 3 square inches larger, increasing from about 15 inches to 18 inches. This does not include home plate. The purpose of this rule is to limit collisions between the runner and the fielder. New changes were voted on by the Joint Competition Committee last Friday. The committee, which was formed out of the 2022 to 2026 collective bargaining agreement, consists of 6 members appointed by the league, 4 active players, and 1 umpire. A full description of the new rules can be found on the league's official website at MLB.com.
Thank you for tuning in.
Don't forget to rock the crimson and blue this weekend while the Jayhawks have a busy one. As always, stay safe and tune in for next week as we'll have another action-packed episode. And rock chalk, Jayhawks.